Hi, I'm Helen Gillett, and I'm going to talk today about presentations, about the skill of presenting, how you can absolutely learn it. Nobody's born with it, and you can work at it and get good at it no matter what your personal preferences are, introvert or extrovert. You can really perfect presentation skills. And presentation skills as part of communication are something that I believe are really, really important for leaders. Communication is a fundamental leadership skill, and being able to stand there and talk to people, whether that's customers, staff and colleagues, suppliers or whoever, and get your point across well is really key. So first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I came to learn to present and how I've perfected, if you like, that art over time. And then I'm going to go through some practicalities and specifics around content, rehearsal and so on. So first of all, a little bit of my story. When I was very early in my career, I joined a sales team where we were going to have to present constantly to customers. And my boss at the time, Dominic, said, right, you need to go on a course. So off I went and I learned a lot of really great practical tips about presenting, thinking about the audience, thinking about content, all these good things. And then when I got back to the office, the work really started because Dom made us rehearse the content over and over and over, gave us lots of feedback, some of which was really quite hard to hear, but gradually built the presentation and our skills to a point where it was really reliable and really effective. And so then I practiced day in, day out with customer presentations, live ones, and got to the point where I was reasonably comfortable with doing it. I still probably often felt that somebody in the audience might catch me out. I often felt nervous. And I can't say I always enjoyed it, but I did it. Scroll forward, and I had some really great training in storytelling. This was from a guy called Johnny Lewis. He's a theatre director, playwright, actor. And Johnny is all about the fact that we know our content. It's how we tell our story that makes the difference. And that really stayed with me. And I have to say, over the subsequent years, as I have pushed myself to present in more and more different environments and used it as a leadership skill increasingly with the teams and the businesses that I've run, the storytelling aspect of it has come ever more to the fore. But you can only tell your story well if all of the rest of it works. And so those are the things that I'm going to cover: content, rehearsal and practicalities. And by the way, I'm using notes here. These are my notes on a mind map. I'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to practicalities. So content, obvious, you've got to have something to say. It's really important that you think about the purpose of your presentation. What am I trying to achieve here? What emotion do I want the audience to have? What do I want them to do as a result of this presentation? And do I want to generate energy? Do I want to generate enthusiasm? Do I want them to think about something and come back later? So that moves you on to your objective. What action do you want the audience to take as a result of your presentation? Think about all of that. Audience, very, very important when it comes to the content. Are they experts in this content themselves? Will they know and understand all of the technical things that you might cover? Or in fact, do you need to really simplify it? Straightforward language is very, very important. Using convoluted explanations might well lose half the audience if you're not careful. And certainly if you're delivering a difficult message and you dress it up in overly clever language, you'll miss the point for people. It needs to be something that anyone can understand. Coming back to who's in the audience, thinking about what attention span they might have, what time of day are you presenting, are you the one after lunch? Thinking about what questions they might have. Now, questions are an interesting one. Questions are a sign your audience is engaging with you and your content, and it's a really important aspect of it. But do try and manage when the questions come. Ideally, they should be at the end, because that gives you the chance to cover everything that you wanted to say and then pick up the points that people want to expand on. It also helps you manage your time better. Thinking about your context, has this audience heard from you before? In which case you don't necessarily need to introduce yourself. If they've never heard from you before, what few things do you really want them to understand about you as a person as well as the content you're delivering? And don't let the content take over to the extent that your media, your slides or your embedded videos or graphics become a distraction. The human element of this, you on stage presenting or you on this video presenting, is what's a critical part of it. And if people are very caught up in the content of a video, particularly if you start looking at it yourself, then they lose that connection with you. So, thinking about all these things, what do you need to do? You need to rehearse. I mentioned this before. Rehearsal can be really excruciating. It can be off-putting. People don't want to know what other people think. They already are worried enough about their ability to do this. So, but you have to. I really, really would stress that. I have rehearsed this video half a dozen times at least. I've adjusted the content, the flow, some of the practicalities around actually videoing. I wouldn't have put out there the very first video that I shot because it wasn't good enough. So rehearsal is like proofreading. You don't want customer-facing documentation, for example, to go out with spelling mistakes in it. By the same token, you want to rehearse your presentation so that it feels smooth, that you stick to time, that you've got all of the practicalities dealt with, and that you've checked your language is nice and straightforward and understandable. So, more practicalities. I've talked about notes, shown you my mind map. A lot of people think it's great to present without any notes, or they think presenters that do that are special. I think it's a lot of pressure and stress to have no notes. If you have to remember a fact or a number or whatever, and you can't, and you've not got it written down there to look at and go, oh, 23.5, it puts unnecessary pressure on you. So I would always say have notes. I quite like cue cards, actually. If I'm walking about on stage, they're very useful. I think if you feel you need a script, then possibly you don't know your content well enough, and you should rehearse to the point where you don't need that script and you can work off notes. But obviously that's down to personal preference. Another thing that's down to preference is that physical presence on the stage that I talked about. Are you a person who likes to wander about? Will you feel jittery if you have to stand or sit still? In which case, that's fine. Make sure you know your way around the stage. There's no harm in standing at the lectern. That's great. That means you can put your notes down, you can put your glasses down, your glass of water can be easily to hand. This is important. Everybody gets dry mouth. You could be in a conference room, a big auditorium that's got the air conditioning on full flow, and you could get really dried up. And it's brilliant to have that moment to take a pause, take a drink, moisten everything, and be able to talk again. Because if you can't, that's really stressful. It's all about being comfortable. So my next point is what you're wearing. I have seen people deliver fantastic presentations full of super content, really good storytelling, but they looked physically uncomfortable, and it is quite off-putting. So whether it's being too hot or too cold, having uncomfortable shoes on, I've done this, having a necklace on that clatters against the mic on your lapel, any of these things is going to detract from the brilliant content that you're delivering so well. So thinking about that comfort is really, really important. I talked about nerves. Nerves are good. Nerves mean that you're respecting the audience, you're respecting the job that you're there to do, but they can feel debilitating. It can be the thing that puts people off most. I just get so nervous, I can't bear it. Well, I would say I still get nervous, and as I say, I regard that as a good sign, but I have ways of managing those nerves. So before I go on stage, before I present something, I tend to do some breathing. Big deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth that enable the oxygen to get around my body. I also smile. Scary. It tricks the brain into feeling positive. It's a really good technique. Sometimes the content you're delivering means that a smile is not appropriate, but most of the time you can smile and make eye contact with somebody and make that connection that engages. The other thing that I do, usually before going on stage, is something called power posing. Now, if you've come across Amy Cuddy, you'll know a little bit about this. She's done the research. Essentially, it's all about feeling powerful in your body, feeling grounded, feeling prepared, feeling like I deserve to be here. And it's about being opened up and being straight and firm in what you're doing. And it, again, the physical way you arrange yourself can trick the brain into feeling that positivity. So I'm just going to check my notes. One more thing that I haven't covered yet, lighting and camera angle, particularly important obviously in the current situation where we're delivering things remotely. You can see here that I've gone for a nice straight camera angle. I'm not showing you the ceiling of my dining room and up my nose because that's not what you want to see. I've got nice natural light the other side of this camera so that my face is well lit and it's not behind me and doing a silhouette effect. These are all the sorts of things that are really important, more important than you might imagine, and will help with your confidence and with feeling like you're delivering a great presentation. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that interesting. I hope it was useful. I'd love to hear from you, and if there's anything else that you want me to expand on, then I'm more than happy to. And I would just say, presenting is something anyone can learn. If you work at it, it can start to feel like it comes naturally and it's enjoyable. And there's nobody that was born with that skill.